People of Reddit, what's the creepiest encounter you've had with a complete stranger that still gives you chills? Story 1. I was pregnant with my first child in 2001. Right before my due date, I was obviously really pregnant. I was shopping in Walmart, and I started to notice this woman on every aisle I went on. I would guess she was in her mid-30s. When I went to the baby section to look at clothes, she started asking me questions. At first they were common, like about the gender. Then the questions started getting strange. Was I married? Did we have a house or an apartment? She commented on my accent and was curious if we had anyone in the area. I am from Michigan and was stationed in Florida, visiting for the birth. Just kind of odd. I was young, 20, but I was married, and my husband and I were both active duty, living off base in a rental house. I just told her yes. We were excited and to have a good rest of her day. She then started actually following me, telling me her husband was outside the store and they could help me take my groceries to my house. That's when I got really nervous. I told her I was fine, thanks that my husband was home and could help me. She then told me they had a big truck and that she would buy me a large baby item. I politely declined and she was so insistent, becoming aggressive. She then offered to buy my husband a grill, since we didn't need any baby things. I was getting panicky at this point because I knew this lady was not right. I went to checkout, so did she. She got out before me, and I watched her race walk out of the store. And sure enough, she and her husband were pulled along the curb at the front near the pop machines. They were in a beat-up old yellow box truck. Husband rolls down the window and says, "We'd be happy to help you with that." I again declined and went to my car. Loaded up and watched for a minute. They didn't move, just watched me. As soon as I pulled out, they did too. I hauled ass out of there, and they were only behind me for a minute or two. I still drove around crying for about 30 minutes, making sure they were gone before I had to pee and needed to go home. I'm now 44, and that is the first, and one of just a few times that I have felt that level of fear in my life. Story 2. I used to work at Major in the deli. A customer came up and asked for my opinion. I recommended all the things I liked and was just super friendly, I guess. He ended up calling the store that night asking for me. The other girl I was working with didn't even offer the phone to me, just told him I had left, thank God. He came back the next day and started asking me personal questions. I was very vague and then started helping other customers. He left, came back the next day. I had to get management involved. He was standing like behind a pole just watching me. I had to be walked to my car every night for about a month. I would call my boyfriend at the time, now husband, every night on the way home and lived in an apartment building with another coworker whose husband would literally walk me to my door. I still feel like he's watching me sometimes, and this was about 4 wires ago. Story 3. Doesn't really give me chills, but was quite creepy. I was leaving a club with my friend and happened to walk out at the same time as 2 very, very drunk young women. They were so drunk, one of them kept saying, "Where is my phone? I've lost my phone," until she realized it was half wedged into her top. They started talking to us and I decided to make sure they got home safe. They didn't want to pay for an Uber and wanted to walk home despite not being able to walk and not being able to operate their phones. I insisted that they order it and did it for them. I also decided to wait to order mine because they were extremely vulnerable and unwise, probably recently 18. While this is happening, a very sketchy-looking dude with a weird look in his eye comes up to us. He asks us if we want to go to an after-party and mentions his Uber is on the way. I politely refuse for all of us, and he kind of hangs around looking at the girls and looking toward the entrance of the club. His Uber, van-style people carrier with a sliding door, pulls up. He opens the door and says nothing to the driver. Suggests we come to the party again. Waits for an uncomfortable amount of time and realizes we are not going to come. Closes the Uber door without saying anything to the driver, and the Uber drives off. He then makes his way back up to the club. He was in the club that night and probably followed the women out, but unfortunately for him, they got talking to me. Story 4. Pretty sure my dog saved me from a dangerous encounter. I was very pregnant and was leaving the grocery store with my cart. Lexi was waiting for me in the car. She loved the car rides when the weather was good. So I was loading up the groceries and realized that a man I had seen sitting in a car before I went into the store was still there and was watching me. He got out of his car and asked if I needed assistance. Which I get. I was very pregnant. It was the polite thing to do. But something about it immediately put me on alert. I was completely unnerved by him and still can't state exactly what it was. I said no thanks. I've got it, but he continued to get out of his vehicle and walk towards my car. Lexi had been snuggled up on the front seat and must have heard there was some concern in my voice or something. Duder continued to walk my direction, claiming he just wanted to help. I continued to say no. I don't need help. No worries. As the man approached the hatch of my vehicle where I was loading the groceries, Lexi sprang up from the front seat, leapt over the back seat, and jumped to the cargo area and started growling and baring her teeth. It was dark, and she was an all-black dog, so she seemingly appeared from nowhere. That was the only thing that made the dude back up and leave. He started cursing at me, calling me names for not accepting his help, and for me letting my dog threaten him. I will say, thank goodness it was dark because Lexi was a cardigan Welsh Corgi that was all black and was far less intimidating looking in the daylight. She looked like a black lab puppy, but had super short, stumpy little legs. She stayed right by my ankles the rest of the night once we were home, would not let me out of her sight. Story 5. My experience is pretty tame, TBH, but I do still think about it occasionally. I was either late 12 or had just turned 13. Can't remember, but my birthday is in winter, and that's when this happened. And I was walking to school. The school was about a mile from my house, so it was a decent walk. It was snowy AF outside, and suddenly a van pulled up in front of me and parked off to the side of the road. I immediately stopped walking because I'm very suspicious of people. A woman got out of the van and asked me if I wanted a ride because it was so cold out. I immediately got suspicious because most people who ask someone if they want a ride just do it from their window as they're driving by slowly. But this woman parked and got out of her van just to ask me this. It made me feel like she wanted to snatch me and drag me to the van. Like I said, I'd stopped walking and did not take another step closer to the van or her. The van had tinted windows. Another red flag for me. I told her, "No, I'm fine. Thanks for asking, though." This wasn't enough, though. The woman asked about 2 or 3 times. The persistence was super sus. Eventually, I was like, "Look, this walking is really important to me. I get bullied at school for being fat and I'm trying to lose weight. That's why I don't take the bus anymore. So I walk to school. I really don't want to ride, okay?" I said it really forcefully. I didn't give a single **t about losing weight. But I was chubby, and that's all I could think of to say. She finally gave up and left. I still wonder what would have happened to me if I was a dumb, trusting kid and took the ride. Story 6. When I was a teen, I worked at a doctor's office. We had a patient, Charlie, come in. He was a workman's comp case, so he hadn't been a patient before. He was handsome and about 6'5" inches of pure muscle, but there was something just off about him. At first I thought it was me, but when he left after his first appointment, all the office staff, all female, felt something wasn't right about Charlie. We were all so uncomfortable that we talked to the doctor, male, about it, and asked if he could be the one to treat Charlie from start to finish. The doctor also got a bad vibe from him too, so he agreed and told the receptionist to schedule him only during busy times, so there were a lot of people around. Charlie came in for his treatments over the course of 3 months, and other than him just being kind of a strange guy, nothing really happened. He finished his treatments. His lawyer sent some requests for paperwork for WC when he was done, and we all thought that was that. About 2 years later, I was reading the paper, and Charlie was arrested for violently raping a woman and nearly killing her in the process. I know it was him because he had an extremely unusual last name, and the ages matched up. He was eventually convicted and went to jail, though I don't know for how long. That was my affirmation that, as a woman, I should always trust my gut. Thank you for watching this video. Write your comments and don't forget to subscribe.